Blog Talk Radio.
Stone Guardian, Crystal Keeper, Gem Lovers and Rockhounds, welcome to There's a Rock for That. Welcome everyone to There's a Rock for That. I am your host, Mary Brown, coming to you live from Amarillo, Texas. You are listening to the Psychic Talk Radio Network. And on this episode of There's a Rock for That, I have a very special guest, Hallowell, and she is going to come on and talk to us about all kinds of really cool things, including her new book, Light Memory, An Alchemist's Guide to Waterbending. And we're going to talk about exactly what waterbending is and crystals and all kinds of really great stuff. And hey, speaking of crystals, our featured crystal guest this month is clear quartz. And if you happen to go to the Psychic Talk Radio Network Facebook group, which if you haven't, you need to like the page and join the group. We have a page and a group. And I post a card of the day on there pretty regularly. I used to say every day, but, because we have listeners from around the globe, it's kind of hard to do it every day. So I got to give a little bit of a time for everyone to actually see the card. But I purposely chose the card of the day today from the Crystal Reading Cards by Rochelle Sharman with beautiful illustrations by Shayote Carter. And I purposely chose the Clear Quartz card, as you might guess, since it is our crystal of the month. And the message with that has to do with purification, okay? And talking about purification in different ways and different levels. How do we clear out our house? We get rid of the clutter, we maybe have a garage sale, that kind of thing. But I'm talking about how do we clear out the extra stuff, the clutter that we may have in our minds and in our emotions, the emotional clutter that can kind of take up space that we could put to much better use for ourselves within our hearts. So I want you to be thinking about that this week. Think of different ways in which you can kind of clear out the things that are no longer serving you. If you're holding on to negative feelings or negative emotions, that kind of stuff, work with clear quartz. It's easily programmable. So you want to program it to help you clear off the clutter and the excess baggage that you don't need to be carrying around anymore. And again, you can find that card of the day by going to our Psychic Talk Radio Facebook group. Easy way to do that is to go to psychictalk.net/Facebook, and it'll take you right there. Also, this is a live call-in show. When I have guests, I take your calls during the second half of the broadcast. We have our guests during the first half. And the number to call in if you want a mini reading or you just want to talk about what we've talked about already on the show, or you have your own experiences with crystals that you would like to share, the number to call is 714-816-4628. Be sure to press the number 1 on your dial pad because that literally raises your hand so I can find you on our magical switchboard. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our guest, Hallowell. Holly,
hello, Mary.
Hello, welcome to There's a Rock for That. It's so great for you to join us today.
I am so thrilled, Mary, and I absolutely adore There's a Rock for That because, as I briefly explained in my book, the Anahata Code started out that way with the varietals of crystals And there
wow.
indeed is a rock for everything. And I always say there's a code for that, because just as there are crystals for every circumstance, there are also codes for each crystal. And so it's also interesting that you brought up clear quartz, because as you know, the waterbending rocks are Lemurian clear quartz crystals. And boy, just the synergies, you can't make it up. There's a lot of stuff that is just in sync. Yeah.
It's so wild. It is so wild. And folks, I don't even know. It was one of those things where you reached out to me, I think through LinkedIn, and
I did.
There was just something immediate. And I couldn't even explain it. I mean, you had a book. I'm like, okay, she has a book. I don't even know why, but I'm drawn to this person. There's something going on here. And I started reading your book, Light Memory, An Alchemist Guide to Waterbending, and all those, we like to call them synchronicities, after Carl Jung.
Mm-hmm.
But they just started happening right away. And I got your water-bending rocks, and, we got to tell the people this story, because I get them, and I just hadn't seen, I've seen a lot of clear quartz in all kinds of varieties and carved and shaped and rough and tumbled and all of that. And I hadn't seen ones like yours, and they're these perfect little spheres. And I told you, oh, my gosh, they're so precious. They look like pomegranate seeds. and then that led to this whole other thing. So, maybe to tell that story, maybe you can tell your story of this journey and how it started with you. And there's a connection to pomegranate seeds in here, and also Lemuria, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So I think I'll just jump in with the memory of Lemuria first. And then we can, go further back. So I had already been channeling assisting frequencies for almost 7 years, when about a year and a half ago, I was standing in my kitchen, or about a year ago. Time, as we're ascending, time is getting real funky. I don't know if you've been noticing.
It is.
It's like,
no,
wait a minute.
Totally.
I thought it was still 2020, and it's 2022. So anyway,
yeah.
So I was in my kitchen making dinner, and, I was relaxed. I wasn't really thinking about anything particular, really just focused in the now moment and just sort of doing my thing. And suddenly I have this vivid flashback of my lifetime as a Muin. And if you've ever had a lifetime flash, you don't have to get up to speed. It's like you remember all at once. And so essentially I remembered probably 10 hours worth of stuff in a matter of seconds. And I'm thinking, holy cow. And what the vision was I was standing and scanning my bio needs. And we can get into this, but I was actually putting a pomegranate seed under my tongue, and I knew exactly what I was doing, mind you. It wasn't like, what am I doing? It was a memory. And so I put the seed under my tongue, and I was scanning in energy and information through the membrane of the pomegranate seed into the water of the seed. And then I was taking the seed out and putting it in a vessel of water. Now, I knew as well that was then being fractalized out into the water molecules across the entire, vessel. All the water in there was now vibrating at that resonance. And I was like, incredible, I'm going to try that. And so I did, and I didn't really know what I was doing other than the memory, but profound things started happening, and I paired them with science about water. And boy, water science in this decade is going to explode on the map. Masaru Emoto did some work showing how water can hold energy and information, but we're going to take I believe, in the next 10 years to a whole new level as we remember how to work with water. But in that memory, I also remember we were walking on water. We were basically alchemists, and we were able to transform our matter, the matter of our body, into more of a light-based being than carbon-based. And so we were able to work with the tension of water. The surface tension of water is incredible. And we literally could walk on water when we activated this vortex energy in our heart space. and the photons sort of surrounded us in this light vehicle, if you will. And it was incredible. And I was like, oh my gosh, water bending is real. And so, this was 17,000 years ago. We would also, we didn't eat a lot of physical, food per se. We lived on programmed water and also the energetics of nectar-based things, so fruits and flowers. And we could just look at the flower or fruit, and a process would happen through our ancient wisdom to be able to transfer the nutrients, sort of like photosynthesis when the sun hits things and it gets converted into energy. We were able to do that. And it was absolutely fascinating. And I just know that many people that I'm in contact with resonate with my work because they were also waterbenders. And so it's often fun to hear people go, oh my gosh, I love Lemurian crystals, or I remember Lemuria, or I'm a Muin, or whatever. And it's sort of like this tribe that we're reawakening and remembering together.
That's amazing. So people have been asking me all week, like, what is waterbending? What does it do? How do you do that? All kinds of questions.
Yeah.
And I've just been pointing them to your website, and your book too. And look, the link that we want to give out to everybody is waterbendingrocks.com. Okay, everybody, waterbendingrocks.com, and you can kind of get with the program, because you have a whole program around this in which people can participate on their own and kind of see what it brings to them. You give some really terrific, easy-to-follow instructions. I think you have a 30-day challenge, right, for waterbending?
Yeah, I have so many things going on, but I really like to simplify, because I think in our day and age we get bombarded with so much information. If it becomes too complex, we freeze up and we just don't move forward. We become overwhelmed. And so I like to, I love when people say, oh my gosh, your book was so easy to read. I read it in 2 days or whatever, because each chapter is, a few pages, and then we go into the next thing, and it's very digestible. You can use it practically, and you can get your sacred mother well going and start using waterbending rocks to infuse codes and or your bio needs into, and even your imagination as the wish fulfilled. I love that. Into the water, and then you begin to resonate on the same bandwidth as your desires. That's how it essentially works. When I say water bending, I mean water is weird, and we have ability through our consciousness to instruct it. And what happens is the water, you are 99% water. And so, if you're not working with your bio water, you're missing out on 99% of your magnetism, because it really is the subconscious. It's how you're magnetizing people, places, things to you. This is very much the law of attraction in action. And so when you can resonate on the same level as what you desire, as if it is so, the laws of the universe have no choice but to give it to you, because you're already matched. And so I just adore, helping people first restructure their water. Most of the water we drink is dead. And just doing that alone, if you have no desire to scan in anything, and you just want better water, very, very simple process to bless your water, and you get increased energy, more restful sleep. Perhaps the most astonishing thing is you really begin to become less triggered about what's going on around you, becoming really just grounded in to the now moment, and really just capable and, confident, and it's almost like you're in a bliss bubble, because, the negative things around you, they still happen, but you just don't respond in the way, you don't react, rather, in the way that you usually do. You become a conscious creator, and you respond. And I think it's time right now for us all to take back our power as sovereign beings and realize that we are creating the world through our response to it. And, we are alchemists. Nothing is created or destroyed. It's all here. It's just how we want to mold that matter into being, from the limitless ether into physicality. And I think that water is the bridge. Water is the missing element that we're ignoring, that we have ignored as I said, I think there's going to be many scientific breakthroughs in the next decade that prove just how special water is and what to do with it. To my knowledge, no one's really talking about what to do with it. Everyone's agreeing, wow, it's wild and weird, and it does this and that and the other.
Right.
It's an anomaly, and it's so important to life, but we don't quite understand it. And, I'm just very pleased that I had those memories, and I'm able to fill in, like, okay, but what do we do with that information?
Right, and it's so important. And what really, I think one of the things that really grabbed my attention and may grab a lot of people's attention when they look at your book and put it kind of in context with maybe things that they have tried, is that you're really looking at this and the information that you have to offer and the techniques and stuff as being something that can kind of, turn the law of attraction industry a little bit on its head. Everybody talks about manifestation, and there's been, we could say this has been going on since Napoleon Hill, at least to some extent. But when The Secret, the movie, and then the book came out, and then it's like this huge industry popped up around it. And often I get calls from people into the show who will be like struggling with that. I'm following all the steps. I'm following all this that they gave me, and nothing's happening. And I see everybody else manifesting, but nothing's happening for me. We literally get calls like that. And so you think water is the missing link in manifestation, right?
I do. It's so true. Everyone talks about the law of attraction and just, the thinking mental side of it. And what I'm doing is saying it's the feeling and the feeling is water. Water is emotion, and that's what it is.
Right.
So when you can get the water of your body on board with where you're headed, everything transforms. It really is the missing link. And as you said, I really do think this is going to disrupt the entire manifestation industry, because in the past it's just like, well, think it. And if you can't think it, you're out of luck, and I do understand that there's no in the universe. And most of the people who struggle with the law of attraction, they're finding themselves in that catch-22, which is you have to believe it before it appears, because if you don't believe it, you're not a match. And so they're like, I'm doing everything right, but I don't see it. And what they're saying to the universe is, don't show me because I'm not doing it right. So all of our, it's the totality of our vibration, including the contradictory ones that are preventing us from being a match. I like to say, if we zoom out past our identity and we become super conscious, that's when we can become a match to all things, because we're no longer living in our identity, who we see when we look in the mirror, our bank accounts, our relationships, our, this, that, and the other. That is basically your identity. And if you can zoom out past that into the ether of all and realize that you are all things, you are spirit having a little experience in this little neck of your own fractal, but you can actually pull through the wormholes of water, anything, because there is a wormhole at the center. This is not just me saying so. This is science. They have found, if you research Nassim Haramein and many others with water, it's interesting. There is literally a wormhole at the center of every water molecule, and that wormhole connects to everything else. And so when you know this, and you know that your body is emotion via its water, you can start getting all of you on board with all of you. Instead of just thinking and then going, where is it? You can bypass that and go straight into the subconscious patterning of you on a vibrational fullness, like on your total level. And boom, that's the missing link. It snaps into place. I actually manifested my soulmate 24 hours after I did a waterbending ceremony, I call them. I scanned in my soulmate, and there he was. And it's like, holy cow. And I mean, just on and on. There's too many different things to mention with that, but that's my favorite one because it happened within 24 hours. So, yeah, just really, really exciting to get this out there to people that may have been struggling in the past with manifestation.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And, one thing I want to point out, because, we are sponsored by the Tarot Guild here, and I'm vice president of the Guild. And, guys, everybody, my tarot people out there listening to this, this is what floored me. In your book, there's this whole thing on the Queen of Pentacles. And I wanted to share, that blew my mind because I'm like, what? Wait, another thing? What's up with this woman? What's going on? Another thing we have in common. And I wanted to share with our Tarot Guild listeners, especially your description of the Queen of Pentacles, because I just love it so much. And you talk about the Queen of Pentacles and, wanting to activate the resonance articulated within the description of the Queen. And the Queen of Pentacles you describe, you say she is grounded and has arrived at her destination after traveling far and wide upon many roads, both up and down. She has reached a place to rest and replenish. Her harvest is ready, and she is now experiencing the collective results of her effort. Sitting upon a throne, she surveys the land in which she now rules, having reached her goals. The contentment felt within her radiates out in waves of gratitude. She can smell the earthy sweetness and flowers of the air. She can breathe in the pure air. And you just go on, and you write about it so beautifully. And I'm like, whoa. And also this idea of water and emotion, you make that connection. That's kind of a classical connection as well. And especially in tarot, we connect the suit of cups, the water suit, with the element of water and with our emotions. So for my tarot people out there listening, this has your vibe too. This has your vibe. And there's so much more to this book too. It's not like somebody just wrote a book to describe like a technique so that you'll take their course kind of thing, right? There's so much great information. You do get into alchemy. You talk about the platonic solids and their alchemical power. You talk about biowater. There's a lot of research that went into this. You're not just, some new age wacky. I think a lot of us into crystals. I often feel like, okay, I have a feeling I know how they're hearing me, but I'm going to go there anyway. But
exactly.
I love
well,
that.
I am a wacky chick, but I am also very scientific. So I get so the way I roll is I have a download and I'll go, but how? How is that possible? And I will magnetize the answers via information that's already been studied. And that just helps me to make sense of how on earth this could be possible. It's just a blessing that I'm balanced in that way. I'm a 3-time Pisces, so I'm very, very watery, but I'm also grounded because, thank God, I think it's Saturn is Taurus. So I can actually roll up my sleeves and cross the finish line and get things done, or else I'd just probably be off in La La Land. But I'm super strange, super out there, new agey, and then at the same time I bring balance in with the scientific aspect of how does this work for those people who need to get their mind around it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'm the same way. I'm a 3-time Scorpio, so I'm like the other.
Oh, yay!
Another water.
Awesome.
But my Venus is in Libra, so that's where my balance comes from. What is it that you think is probably, if they take nothing else away from the show today, what is the one thing that you want people to think of when they, maybe they live next to a body of water, maybe they're drinking water? You talked about how messed up our water is. What can they do right now today in response to that?
Yeah, there's so many things that come to mind, but really it's about being a conscious creator, because you're creating anyway. You might as well create consciously. The issue being we only think with 10% of our brain. So 90% of our day-to-day is on autopilot. It's based on past patterns. These are passed down hereditary, epigenetics, past lives, past traumas, and that's really what the memory is. It's a logging, and it goes into our subconscious, and it's helpful. It alerts us. It keeps us. We don't have to remember how to make a cup of coffee every morning. So defaults are good, but they're running at 90%, and we aren't aware of this. And even the people who are all into mindfulness, which is amazing, being in the now. Even if you're doing a good job of that, you're still hitting maybe 20%, which would be epic. But so largely we are pattern-based beings. And so we've got to address our subconscious. And this is the missing link with manifestation as well, is people can be 100% on board with where they want to go and only be 20% on board, because the 80%, even if they're like, I'm doing this, I'm absolutely going after it. If they don't get their subconscious rewired, it's not going to happen. It's called cybernetics. They're going to go right back to the same old patterns. You have to lovingly integrate and transmute. And the best way to do that is through water, because you are 99% water, and your water is holding up every single part of your biology. And the other exciting thing that I love about this is it's also holding up your DNA. When we think of DNA, we just think of, the shape and the formation and the physical of it. But what's surrounding that? It's water. And so when you can actually work with that cohesion around your DNA, you can really reach new heights. I have a free pineal gland activation at waterbendingrocks.com as well. Halfway down the page, you can play that and plump up your pineal gland, because that too is surrounded by water. And so water is a liquid crystalline supercomputer, and it's programmable. And so literally you can get all of you on board with all of you, which makes the difference. And so that's what I would say is, don't forget about your 90% subconscious. If you're 10% on board, if you're 100% on board, that's 10%. You really got to address these default patterns. Yeah. Subconscious is where it's at if you want to make progress.
What we haven't talked about is the clear quartz aspect of this. The waterbending rocks are made of clear quartz. They're programmable. And so I am programming them through the use of your codes, right, is one way.
Yeah, so that's one way.
And so
so I'll just talk about it.
Yeah, can you just tell us? You'll tell it better than I do.
Oh,
yeah.
So sweet.
I just wanted to let people know how we use crystals in this waterbending.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 3 ways that I teach you how to use the waterbending rock, which again is a tiny little sphere, and you place it under your tongue. And there's 2 ways to use that mechanism. One is just like I was doing as a Muon in Lemuria, scanning in your bio needs, and this happens automatically. And it's also not news, because people can put actual seeds they plant under their tongue and then plant that seed, and that plant will actually give you what you need. Let's say you have a magnesium deficiency. It's going to pull magnesium in based on that request. This is a proven thing. It's just fascinating. And so your body will speak through your saliva to the waterbending rock. And so I teach you in the book about biowater and your dosha, your tri-energies. And so this approach of scanning, I teach you, you don't have to know what you're doing. And I think that's awesome for us, because a lot of times we like to think, if I don't understand it, then I'm doing it wrong or I can't do it. You just scan. You scan, you let your body do the talking, and it's going to tell the crystal what you need. Now, you put the crystal in water, structured water, it's going to pull through the ether connected to all the resonance you seek based on that, because there's a wormhole at the center of every water molecule. So your crystal's pretty much communicating that for you. That's one way, scanning in your biowater needs. The second way is scanning in the wish fulfilled. You mentioned Neville Goddard and Napoleon Hill and all these manifestation gurus. But, you know, this is an ancient shaman hack before they even talked about it. And that is, if you want something, be it, right? Be it to see it. And it's true. You have to become that. And if you want it to rain, you don't say, I hope it rains. Where's the rain? We really could use some rain, because you're really actually affirming there's no rain. It's dry. Yeah. So instead, you go into this future memory. This is why it's so exciting for me, because water is memory, but it can work from the future backwards, because it's in the other realm. It's attached to timelessness, where you have all the things you desire already. It's a done deal. And so if you can have a memory of your future and feel emotional about that, you're a match. That's the hack. And so I teach you also to put it under your tongue and scan the wish fulfilled, and really get emotional about whatever it is you desire as if it is so. And this is what I did when I was scanning in for my soulmate. I was imagining him, his arms around me. He was kissing my neck. I could smell his cologne, you know, and I was like, oh, he's so wonderful. And I was getting very emotional about him and about how we responded to each other, and how we were just very balanced on our own, but when we come together, even better, and just all these wonderful things. And I was really visualizing it as if it was actually happening. And then I put the waterbending rock in the water and let it do its thing. And the next day I drank the water, and my vibration was that, as if it is so. And what happened was I met him within 24 hours. So, you know, this is pretty speedy fast. And, you know, again, that's just one example, but it's a tool for that. And then the third way is, if you're like, you know, I can't visualize anything. You know, I hear this a lot. People say, well, I'm just not good at visioning or imagining, and that's okay. Sure. There's a code for that. That's why I love you say there's a crystal for that. There's a code for anything that's already resonating. Exactly. There's a code that's already resonating. There's a thing in the universe that already is resonating with the information, the superpower, if you will, for what you need to become a match. So you can literally just pull a code out of my book. You can find the codes at anahatecodes.com and scan it in. It's like a barcode. You literally take the quartz crystal and you scan it over the code. It takes that code, pulls through the wormhole, the totality of the essence of that thing, and you drop it in the water. So, you know, I put that in the book because I really wanted you guys to feel the Queen of Pentacles and then be able to scan that in as if it is so, because that's sovereignty. That is arriving. That is, you've arrived, and it is. And so it is. And so it's just a beautiful code. But there are thousands of codes in my other book, Anahata Codes.
Wow. And we have a question from the chat room. It's kind of interesting. This comes from Jason. He says, when I wake up in the morning and drink water, the water sometimes tells me what I should eat for the day. Holly, do you think there is a reason for that?
I think your body's speaking to you continually if we can listen. And so he's basically, and I agree with you, I 100% think that is not only possible, I think that's how it works. We just don't listen. But he's tapped into listening, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, our bodies are speaking to us all the time, and we are 99% water. So if you're drinking water and you're opening up that channel of communication through hydration, mind you, you must have some pretty good water, because most of our water's dead, and it's definitely not optimized energetically. But just the thought as a co-creator, as a creator, as consciousness, that is what's happening, you make it so. The water's doing that for you. So he's kind of, he's just jumping straight into the technology that water holds energy and information, and it can absolutely do that for you, and more.
Yeah, he might have better water than we do here. He lives in Spain, so I wonder if it is better water. You know, now you got me thinking about how good is my water?
Yeah, well, running water, flowing water off a spring is the best, obviously. But we don't have that anywhere in the world.
Yeah, his comes down from the mountains in Spain.
Oh,
so the Pyrenees, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, anytime it goes through a pipe and those 90-degree turns and all the chemicals they use to clean it and pump it back in,
do we even want to know what's in it?
No, no, it's just awful.
I think we probably not. Well, oh my gosh.
Well,
again, the
salt, the seas, the oceans, the Mother Gaia is cleansing continually our memory layers so that we don't have PTSD, because the salt takes that out. Salt strips it of the memory.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's a really good thing that's occurring. But still, the water we drink isn't that good for us.
Yeah, and speaking of Gaia, you say a really wonderful thing about our Mother Earth, and you say that we are the thinking aspect of Gaia. We can create systems of structure,
exactly.
and that we're like the neurons of the planet. And I love that so much. And I think if we really, the more the people can spread that message as well, the more maybe that we can help restore.
We could transform the entire planet if we could all remember that we get what we think about and that we create based on our thoughts and the emotional responses. And if we could all get on the same page, we could usher in a whole new world quantumly. Like in one moment, it could all transform. And right now we're being dumbed down, controlled by fear, told, not to go within, not to, it's, a continual sort of, I don't want to say battle, but there's a, fear or love. And love is structured. It is, it's so great too that water responds to love and high vibration with divine symmetry, with sacred geometry. And if you expose water to fear and anger and any sort of dense energy, it actually separates and becomes this ugly looking blob. And of course, energy and information is not going to flow on a grid like that. Yeah, exactly. So we are so blessed that the highest expression of the world is love, and that when we sanctify our water with love, we basically get it back online so that it can pull through those wormholes in a structured way. I think that's probably why they say God is love, in the Bible, because it's the highest form, it's the most intricate, it's the most intelligent, and we can structure our water that way, and it really does then hold anything we desire once you sanctify it.
I love that. And I love your book, and I love you, and I'm so happy that you could join us today and share
you so much,
your
Mary.
wisdom.
We are birds of a feather, and I'm so thrilled now to call you friend, and boy, it's just been a blast. I'm so excited to support you and all the good things you're up to, and everyone else listening. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. And again, everybody, the website to go to is waterbendingrocks.com, and the book to read is Light Memory, An Alchemist's Guide to Waterbending. Thank you so much, Holly Hallowell, for joining us, and we're going to keep in touch, okay? You're going to have to come back.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Well, we are a little bit past the half of the hour here, or whatever we call it, the top of the hour, the top of the bottom. Halfway through the show, it's time to tell everybody what's coming up on the Psychic Talk Radio Network. And then after that, we're going to discuss our crystal guest of the month here and also take your calls. So next up on the Psychic Talk Radio Network, our next show is Monday, February 7th, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's the Wisdom of the Soul show with your host, Janice Fuchs, and that is going to be followed by our show next Saturday, February 12th, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Our CEO of the Tarot Guild, Dax Carlisle, and myself as host of the Tarot Today radio show. It's going to be really great. We're going to have a fantastic guest on our show, Daniel Loeb, and he's going to be talking about his fascinating new tarot deck, the Rota Mundi Tarot, the Rosicrucian Arcanum. So that's going to be interesting to get into, and more alchemy. Alchemy is the thing now. It's the year or the time period, I think, for us to go back and examine it again. And then that's going to be followed by our show on Sunday, February 13th. It is the Magic Universe Show with your host, Sharona Rapsick, and she's going to be having a super uber special guest, our very own Dax Carlisle, numerologist and tarot master, and they're going to be talking about the Lover's card and the number 6. It's the world year number 6, plus they will be taking your calls for free tarot readings and open lines. It's going to be a lot of fun, and that is what is coming up on the Psychic Talk Radio Network this week. Okay, so let's talk just a little bit about our featured stone of the month, clear quartz. And a lot of you might be thinking, oh, well, I know all about clear quartz. What's there left to say about clear quartz? There's a lot left to say about clear quartz. It is almost like, you know how in numerology you have the master numbers? Clear quartz to me is the master crystal. If nothing else, if you have no other crystal in your life, which would be a very sad concept to me, you have to at least have some clear quartz. In fact, you already have clear quartz. You already have quartz in your life, let's say. If you have electronics, if you have a watch, there's clear quartz everywhere. Quartz has been utilized in so many different ways for such a very, very long time. You wouldn't believe how long, but we'll get into that. So what are the basics? Well, usually it doesn't have any color to it, right? It's clear quartz. It has about a 7 on the Mohs hardness scale. Not really has any cleavage. Generally, if it has streaks, they're kind of colorless. The fracture is conchoidal, kind of brittle, and doesn't fluoresce like some of our rocks. It is transparent and composed of silicon dioxide and oxygen. And it's one of the most abundant minerals found nearly everywhere on Earth's surface. And it's, again, composed of the two most common elements on the Earth's crust, silica and oxygen. Sometimes you see really big pieces when it's formed in an open space. Quartz grows to the gigantic, amazing crystals, if you've ever seen pictures of the crystal caves that have been found. And, you know, quartz does all kinds of really amazing things, right? One of the things that it does is help to form other stones. So when you look at petrified wood, right, quartz basically replaces the cell structure of the wood to form petrified wood. And it also can fill in the spaces between asbestos fibers to create tiger eye. Pure quartz, often also known as rock crystal, is colorless. And we have different varieties of quartz. Smoky quartz is one that you may be familiar with. It's got that golden to brown gray kind of color, and they think that that's possibly that color comes from irradiation. Trine is another form of quartz. That's the yellow one, usually colored by iron. There's rose quartz, there's amethyst, there's all kinds of quartz, but clear quartz especially, very accessible, found all over the earth, not that expensive. Sure, if you buy a big, gigantic piece is going to cost you a few bucks, right? But you can get little tumbled pieces or little raw pieces. What I like is like the little needle quartzes, really thin, needle-shaped pieces. Tumbled stones are great. You always want to have a nice amount of clear quartz around if you're doing any sort of crystal grid work, because it amplifies. So say you're doing a grid for healing and you're using, you're called to use certain stones. Maybe you want to use, maybe you're healing the emotions and you want to use rose quartz or something. Don't just make your grid just with rose quartz. Put clear quartz in between and around it. It's really touching and connecting the grid structure, because that's going to amplify the other stones that you are using. And Holly and I were talking about clear quartz being programmable. A lot of stones that contain quartz in them are still programmable, but there's nothing as direct for taking any programming you want to put into it or intention with your intention than clear quartz, because it's a channel. You can think of it that way as well. And you can also use it for channeling work too. And, let's talk a little bit about what makes it so amazing, so important. There are so many beliefs connected to quartz, and its use as a communications device or as an object which enhances our visions or brings visions to us. So if you're working on visualization or struggling to visualize things, or you're working on channeling or connecting with your spirit guides or meditation, and you want to, have some help with that, clear quartz is a great stone to be working with to help you with those things. It was discovered to be piezoelectric in 1921. And what that means, we hear that term thrown around a lot in our crystal community, and not everybody knows exactly what it means, or people just kind of take a guess at it. I've seen some wild descriptions for it, but on the basic level, what it means is it will generate an electric charge. Okay? So they've done a lot of scientific experiments with this. A plate of quartz cut parallel to the direction of its prism, the prism faces that you see, produces a charge when it's stressed. So it's like when they put pressure on it, they see this electrical charge that can be measured. Also, it can vibrate when an electrical current is introduced to it, and that's actually introducing an electric current to clear quartz has actually been used to stabilize the frequency of radio transmissions. We're on the radio right now. So, of course, we're, talking about clear quartz. And they've done all kinds of wild things, alternating currents used, with quartz slices, oscillates dimensionally. There's all kinds of really interesting things about that, because they've been able to work with it enough. Experiment, sure, but they're testing their theories, and they've been able to kind of control radio frequencies using that alternating, using the oscillation that's generated by the alternating current. So that is some kind of wild stuff. Quartz is also pyroelectric and can generate a charge when it's heated or rubbed vigorously. So it's not just a stone sitting there. It's got all kinds of abilities just naturally. The magical powers of quartz have been recorded since the very earliest times. Large crystals of clear quartz were found in the 8,000-year-old Egyptian temple of Hathor. And it's just been ubiquitous in every, held in reference in every ancient culture you can think of. Whether it's the Greeks, there's this interesting thing about the Greek priest Automacritus, who was the founder of the Hellenic Mysteries, and he gave the following advice in the 5th century BC regarding clear quartz. He says, "Whoso goes into the temple with this in his hand, the clear quartz, may be quite sure of having his prayer granted, as the gods cannot withstand its power." They can't turn it down. They can't turn down your prayer if you have a clear quartz in hand. So that's another way, very, very, very ancient way of programming your clear quartz or working with it. Hold it in your hand. Maybe take it to church or whatever you consider your temple, okay? It doesn't have to be, Hathor. It can be whatever you consider your, however you relate to the idea of deity. If you're going to pray for something, or you're going to ask for a blessing, or you want to bless something else or someone else that's sending or receiving, put that intention through your clear quartz. Program it with that. I mean, we've been doing this for a really, really long time, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We hold these idea of these ancient mystery schools in such high regard, right? And guess what? They were working with clear quartz. And guess what? You have clear quartz too. You can get it. It's everywhere. It's available to you. So just something to keep in mind. Where does the word come from? The word quartz is an old German mining term. Nobody really knows exactly the exact origin of it, but that word quartz itself has been in general use since the 16th century. It also has the term rock crystal. It was known to the Greeks as kristallos, meaning clear ice. And they thought that clear quartz was ice that had been petrified and was held in a permanent solid state. And they continued to believe that for centuries, because it was even recorded in the 11th century in the Book of Various Acts by Theophilus. And he said, crystal, which is water hardened into ice, and ice of great age is hardened into stone. And so our term today, crystal, actually comes from that Greek root for kristallis. And, we don't use it just for clear quartz. We use it for a lot of different types of stone. But the ancient Romans also connected colorless clear quartz with ice. Pliny the Elder, our favorite, related the story that it was once congealed water found in dark mountain caverns under extremely cold conditions. Even crystal balls were often held in the hand to use the effects of summer heat. And the Romans used quartz crystals for glandular swelling, to reduce fevers, and to relieve pain. And the 1st century mystic Apollonius of Tyana used quartz to transport himself. I know he's an interesting guy to read about. Apollonius of Tyana. There's some really interesting examples, because we are talking about the 1st century, so it kind of also ties in to another guy who did miracles and was walking around then, right? And, it was said that he actually dematerialized and materialized in the presence of Caesar Domitian. And then he used the clear quartz to disappear and reappear at the foot of Mount Vesuvius. And the Renaissance Viennese scientist Pribil claimed to have recreated that same feat that Apollonius did through extensive experimentation. He stated that the secret lay in the cut, first exposed to the tropical sun, then held in the mouth and accompanied by the proper incantation. I could go on and on and on about clear quartz throughout history and everything else. I chose those particular little tidbits of trivia because I'm sure you were sitting there listening to this reeling in your chairs right now, right? What Holly Hallowell was talking about earlier today, about the connection with water, even about putting it in your mouth, she's recovered some, from Lemuria, right? First for her, through that past life recall. But we're talking about the ancients throughout history, throughout time, and through different cultures, kind of the same thing, and continuing through centuries to do it. Now, somewhere along the way, there was a disconnect, obviously, with our modern lives and everything, but I find it endlessly fascinating that what she was talking about is not that far off track at all. It's exactly right on point, and this is ancient wisdom recovered, as far as I'm concerned. So that's something to think about, something to think about, something to scan yourself about. She talked about scanning, and another thing that I wanted to say about this is that a lot of these ideas of, the energy workers out there, and I'm one of them too. Think of all the different ways that we work with water and that we work with crystals already. I mean, there's a lot of things. Elixirs are a big part of, the world of crystal healing and just working with crystals. And essentially, that's how I look at her water bending technique, as aspects of that as being like making an elixir. We're used to doing that with all different kinds of crystals. Now, granted, a lot of us use the indirect method, and we don't put it directly in the water, but within a vessel within that, so there's not direct contact. And that's really important when it comes to what different stones that you want to work with, right? You do not want to make an elixir you're going to drink out of malachite, right? It has toxic properties in it, right? The same with selenite, those little, it can flake off in the water, it dissolves in water, but I just love how it all ties in together with ancient wisdom, with what crystal healers are doing today, what we do as Reiki practitioners out there too, and even color therapy. How many times have you, thought of, or maybe you've done it yourself, of taking a particular color that has a certain meaning to you? Maybe you take the color pink, and you think of the heart chakra, and you think of love, and you want more love in your life, or you want to, get that loving feeling. And you might take a colored piece of paper or a pretty, print off something that has a pretty pink color to it, or a placemat or something, and you set your glass of water on top of it so it can absorb the energy of that color. It's that sense of, I want to say it's very similar to sympathetic magic, right? So I think we've had a lot of things to think about today when it comes to water bending, when it comes to clear quartz, when it comes to alchemy, when it comes to all the different things that we can do to enhance and to heal our lives and ourselves. And so, I hope that I've given you all a lot of food for thought today. And I'm looking in the chat room here to see what is going on with everybody. We have a whole bunch of people in the chat room. Just want to see, what do you love most about water? Oh, and Jason says he's very grateful for fresh water. A lot of people can't have fresh water. It's very sad. It is sad. It is sad. But, remember what Holly talked about as we're the neurons of the planet, We're the thinking part of Gaia, of our Mother Earth. And so instead of, with that in mind, instead of thinking like a lot of people can't have fresh water, it's very sad, get into that wish-fulfilled thing that Holly was talking about. Get into that idea of like seeing and feeling so happy and joyful about the idea that they can have fresh water. That instead of it being very sad, let it be very happy. Get into that feeling. Put it out there. Put it out there. The more of us that can move into that space of getting away from the sense of lack and the sadness and the, the inequality, right? Because really what you're talking about, a lot of people not having fresh water, in a sense, it really ties into the idea of inequality too. So instead of concentrating on that and bringing us down into that, feeling of sadness about it and what's missing, move out of that space, move your heart and your feelings and your mind into the space of they can have access. We can have fresh water. We can rejuvenate the planet. We can bring it all back. We can bring it all back. And not even so much bring it back, but take it to the next level. Do hope that what Holly was talking about with the idea of this is a time when so much more is going to be coming in when it comes to what we discover and we learn and the information about water and how it works and everything. I hope that does happen, and I hope that we all benefit from it. And today I'm going to start believing that it's true. I'm going to start putting my feelings and my thoughts in that place where, yes, we can have that. Everybody can have that. So that, I'm going to leave you folks with that today as our final note. I want to thank you all so very much for joining me today and listening in. And for those who joined us in the chat room, big thanks to you for keeping the conversation going. And for those that listen later to the replay, thank you for tuning in as well. All right, everybody, have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye-bye, everybody.